Some supermodels step into the world from nothing. They fight tooth and nail just to be seen. But others are born under blinding spotlights, where the whole world has watched them since childhood. Kendall Jenner belongs to the latter. And yet, here lies the paradox. While millions of young women dream of becoming famous overnight, for Kendall, fame itself was her greatest obstacle. On the runway, she appears in Chanel haute couture, her gaze cold, her walk commanding. But only hours later on social media, thousands of comments come flooding in with the same familiar refrain. She doesn't really deserve it. She's only here because of her family. Kendall Jenner, one of the most recognizable faces on the planet, is often dismissed as someone with nothing but a last name. That paradox defines her story. She is both the model with the easiest start and the one who has had to fight the hardest to be taken seriously in fashion. The irony is that this very paradox has turned Kendall into a symbol of Gen Z itself, a generation no longer dazzled by surface-level glamour, but hungry to see the truth behind it. So the question isn't just, is Kendall Jenner a real supermodel? The deeper question is, what transformed a reality TV girl raised in one of Hollywood's loudest families into an indispensable face on the world's most prestigious runways? And to answer that, we must go back to the very beginning, to Kendall's childhood, where the spotlight was both a gift and a gilded cage. Kendall Nicole Jenner was born on November 3, 1995, in Los Angeles, into the world-famous Kardashian-Jenner dynasty. Her father, Caitlyn Jenner, then Bruce Jenner, was an Olympic legend, while her mother, Kris Jenner, was the mastermind behind Kardashian media empire. From the very first day of her life, Kendall was destined to live under the spotlight. Most children grow up with playgrounds, schools, or neighborhood streets as their backdrop. Kendall grew up on the set of a reality TV show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. At just 11 years old, her face was already broadcast into millions of living rooms. At first glance, it might have seemed like a dream. Beautiful clothes, luxurious mansions, a family always basking in attention. But for Kendall, the spotlight came with a shadow. From a young age, she had to endure constant whispers of comparison. Of course she's famous. Look who her family is. Her identity was inseparable from her last name, so much so that many believed she would never be able to stand on her own. Teenage years are already difficult, a time of insecurities, identity crises, and self-doubt. For Kendall, every private moment was made public. When she changed her hairstyle, it became a headline. When she cried, the whole world saw. When she made a mistake, it instantly turned into a drama for tabloids to feast on. And yet, in the middle of the loudest family in Hollywood, Kendall was the most introverted. She wasn't drawn to scandal. She didn't crave the spotlight of reality TV, and she didn't chase fame for fame's sake. Instead, she nurtured a quiet passion: fashion. While her sisters built businesses, cultivated social media empires, and thrived on television, Kendall would spend hours flipping through Vogue, studying collections, and dreaming of one day walking the runway like the supermodels she admired. The paradox was clear. Kendall was born at the very center of attention, but had to fight to find her own voice. She didn't want to be just Kris Jenner's daughter or Kim Kardashian's little sister. She wanted to be recognized as Kendall Jenner, the model. And that desire became the fire that pushed her to step away from the comfort zone of reality TV and into an even harsher arena, the world of high fashion. The turning point came when Kendall Jenner was just 17. While many assumed she would follow in her sister's footsteps, becoming a reality TV star or an influencer, Kendall chose an entirely different path, one far harsher and more demanding: high fashion. She first signed with Wilhelmina Models as a teenager, starting small with lookbook shoots and commercial campaigns for accessible brands. But only a few years later, everything changed. Kendall moved to IMG Models, one of the most powerful agencies in the world, and from there, her journey took a new turn. In 2014, Kendall stunned the fashion world when she walked in Marc Jacobs' show at New York Fashion Week. With a short bob haircut and bleached brows, she was almost unrecognizable. The Kardashian kid was gone. For the first time, the industry realized Kendall was serious. She was willing to shed her familiar image to step fully into the world of high fashion. From that moment on, Kendall became a fixture on the runway. She walked for Givenchy, Chanel, Balmain, Versace, Dolce & Gabbana, and more. She emerged as one of the most in-demand young faces in Paris, Milan, and New York. Beyond the catwalk, Kendall graced the covers of top magazines like Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Love, and Allure. What made her rise even more unique was its timing. The 2010s marked the era in which social media, especially Instagram, began to redefine fashion. Kendall quickly became one of the standout Instagirls alongside Gigi and Bella Hadid. But unlike the criticism that Instagram models relied solely on follower counts, Kendall proved her worth by consistently appearing on the toughest, most prestigious runways. One of her biggest milestones came in 2015 when Kendall officially became a Victoria's Secret angel. With her dramatic wings and dazzling presence, she joined the ranks of global it girls. That same year, she landed on Forbes' list of the highest paid models, standing shoulder to shoulder with icons like Gisele Bündchen. But Kendall's power went beyond being a brand favorite. She built an image that was both aspirational and relatable. On the runway, she was cold, elegant, untouchable. But on social media, she shared moments with friends and family, showing a playful, down-to-earth side. This balance made her not just a model, but a cultural figure. And perhaps most importantly, Kendall broke free from her family's shadow. If once she had been introduced as Kim Kardashian's little sister, by the late 2010s, Kendall Jenner had become a brand of her own, a supermodel trusted to open and close shows for the world's most prestigious houses. From a girl raised under the glare of reality television, Kendall Jenner proved that the spotlight means nothing without genuine effort. That transformation, turning scrutiny into respect, cemented her as one of the defining faces of a new fashion generation. The runway lights may dazzle, but behind them lie shadows few ever see. For Kendall Jenner, the path to becoming a supermodel was far from a straight line. From the very beginning, Kendall carried a heavy label that she only succeeded because she was a Kardashian. Many within the fashion world dismissed her place on the runway as a product of fame, not talent. Comments like "privileged rich girl" followed her everywhere, making every step she took subject to scrutiny. On top of that, Kendall faced another stigma, being an Instagram model. As social media began reshaping fashion, young models like Kendall, Gigi, and Bella Hadid were branded as women who relied only on followers. Even as Kendall proved herself with consistent appearances in the most demanding high fashion shows, she was often undervalued, constantly compared to the models of earlier generations. The pressure peaked in 2017 when Kendall starred in a Pepsi advertisement that sparked global outrage. In the commercial, she appeared to hand a can of Pepsi to resolve a protest, an image immediately condemned as tone-deaf and exploitative of social movements. The backlash was swift and brutal. Pepsi pulled the ad and issued an apology, but Kendall was left to shoulder the storm of criticism. She later admitted it was one of the lowest points of her career, a moment that made her want to disappear from the spotlight entirely. Yet, the criticism didn't stop at her work.
Growing up famous meant Kendall constantly lived under comparison. While other models were free to craft their own image, Kendall was perpetually framed within the shadow of the Kardashian Jenner dynasty. Every step, her relationships, her appearance, her choices, was dissected under a magnifying glass. There was also a subtler, deeper pressure, the tension between the cold, untouchable supermodel image required on the runway and Kendall's true self. At her core, she is a Gen Z woman who values honesty, who wants to share her emotions and vulnerabilities. That conflict often left her drained, even spiraling into anxiety. There were moments when Kendall all but vanished from the spotlight. She chose retreat, spending time with friends and family, and most importantly, allowing herself space to heal. Time and again, she had to remind herself that modeling was her choice, not a burden imposed by media or her family's fame. What makes Kendall different is not that she never fell, it's how she stood back up. While past generations of models often hid their struggles to maintain an image of perfection, Kendall chose transparency. She openly discussed her anxiety, her mental health battles, her moments of weakness, and paradoxically, that honesty only made her more relatable, especially to Gen Z. For Kendall, light does not come only from the runway. It comes from daring to acknowledge her own shadows. And that, more than anything, is her true strength.
Sometimes the cracks are exactly where the light gets in. For Kendall Jenner, after all the judgment, criticism, and moments where it seemed she might collapse, she didn't just stand back up. She rose to become one of the most sought after supermodels in the world. The true breakthrough came when Kendall secured her place firmly in the ranks of high fashion. She was no longer the Kardashian girl or an Instagram model, but the face chosen to open and close some of the most prestigious shows: Chanel, Balmain, Givenchy, Versace. Designers didn't cast her for her Instagram following, they chose her for the presence she brought to the runway, her steady stride, her icy gaze, a charisma that blended timeless elegance with the freshness of Gen Z. In 2018, Kendall officially surpassed Gisele Bündchen to become the highest paid model in the world, according to Forbes. It was a milestone not only for Kendall herself, but for an entire new generation of models, one that knew how to command both the runway and social media. But what truly sets Kendall apart is her balance between high fashion supermodel and relatable Gen Z girl. On the runways of Paris or Milan, she transforms into a vision of luxury and power. Yet hours later, on Instagram or TikTok, she reappears in ordinary moments, walking with friends, laughing with Kylie, or sharing her wellness routines. That duality embodies the shift fashion desperately needed, from distant to approachable, from untouchable to relatable. This is why Kendall has become a symbol of change. Brands don't just see her as a campaign face, they see her as a bridge to an entire generation. When Versace crowns Kendall as vedette, it's a declaration that Gen Z has earned its place in a world once ruled by rigid standards. When Vogue places her on its cover, it isn't just to sell magazines, it's a statement. A new era of the supermodel has arrived. On social media, Kendall doesn't need to shout to be heard. Her presence alone speaks volumes. With over 200 million followers, she can stop the world with a single post. Yet more importantly, she doesn't use her platform just to flaunt glamour. She uses it to talk about anxiety, mental health, and the pressures of living under constant scrutiny. What previous generations of models often hid, Kendall chose to make visible. And that's why she has become a true Gen Z icon, a generation that rejects artificial perfection and values honesty above all else. Kendall's rise has also redefined what it means to be a supermodel. Once, the title belonged only to faces on magazine covers and fashion runways. With Kendall, it's something more. She is an influencer, a connector, a cultural symbol.
From Instagram to Vogue, from Paris Fashion Week to everyday snapshots, she dissolves the boundary between fashion's exclusivity and the public's reality. Today, Kendall Jenner is not only one of the highest paid models in the world, but also one of the most influential figures shaping global aesthetics. Brands choose her not just for her beauty, but for the story she embodies, the story of turning doubt into drive, of transforming criticism into resilience, and of a generation that dares to live authentically. If the 90s had Naomi Campbell as the face of unapologetic power, then Gen Z has Kendall Jenner as the face of unapologetic authenticity, a supermodel who doesn't hide her anxieties, who doesn't mask her flaws. And because of that, she is stronger than ever. Kendall's legacy is being written day by day, not just in magazines or on runways, but in the voice she lends to an entire generation. A generation that believes a supermodel doesn't need to be perfect. She just needs to be real.
The lights on the runway will always fade. Collections, trends, even the most extravagant shows, all of them eventually pass. But what endures are the faces that transform fashion into a story, into history. And Kendall Jenner, from a girl on a reality TV show to the supermodel redefining an entire generation, is one of those faces. What makes Kendall an icon is not the numbers or the titles, not the fact that she became the highest paid model in the world, nor her contracts with Chanel, Versace, or Balmain. Her true legacy lies in the courage to step out of her family's shadow, to confront prejudice head on, and to live authentically in an industry that demands perfection at every turn. Kendall has proven that beauty is not a formula. It isn't just about height, symmetry, or an icy gaze. For Gen Z, beauty is authenticity. It's in daring to reveal the cracks, in speaking openly about anxiety, in transforming vulnerability into strength. And that is what Kendall leaves behind for future generations. A new definition of the supermodel. No longer just someone who walks a catwalk, but someone who tells her own story. Someone willing to become a mirror for millions of people searching for truth. Today, when people mention Kendall Jenner, they no longer say she's Kim Kardashian's younger sister. They say she is one of the supermodels redefining fashion in the 21st century. And perhaps the final question is not about Kendall at all, but about us. In a world overflowing with beautiful faces and carefully curated perfection, could it be that what makes Kendall Jenner an icon is not flawlessness, but honesty?